Welcome to another episode of the Paragon Path. This is episode 7, the Ruffian Barbarians. We have 4 amazing guests with us today, and we're going to talk about everything that you can do to up your rage game, from getting your kills to advancing your skills. Stick around, find out, and enjoy the show. Beautiful. All right, welcome to our 7th episode of the Paragon Path. This is the Ruffian Barbarians. I like internal rhymes. This is going to be fun. I am Merrick the 15th. I'm running this shit, so have fun listening to my voice for the next X amount of hours until I run out of content. With us today, we have 4 guests. One of them is not going to be pictured on screen because he doesn't have a camera yet. We're peer pressuring him to get a camera. And we're going to have everyone introduce themselves. I'm going to start with Mittens because she's up on top row with me on my screen.
Hi, I'm Mittens.
How long have you played? When did you get your Paragon in?
Cool. You're asking me to look things up now. A long time ago, V7.
Okay.
I've been playing since June 2nd of 2012. So, like, many years.
That's a bit. I see Oddvar is smiling a little bit because that seems like a low amount for him. Is that what it is? We'll go to Oddvar next to introduce himself.
Sir Oddvar, the Striking Viking. Cat, don't eat that cord.
That's a long name.
I could change the orc.
Well, I didn't even throw in Iron Wolf.
Oh, that's right. That's on there too.
Don't tell Q-Wolf.
Gasp.
I've been playing since February of 2007. I got my Paragon in 2014, I believe, and it was actually from Broton, if I'm not mistaken.
Sounds about right.
Broton, with that, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, I am Broton. I guess Sir Broton P. Sir Grand Duke Broton P. Loxel. Insert all the giant names I have attached to it, but you could just call me Broton. I got my Paragon Barbarian in September 2015 at Keep of the Borderlands. Let's see, I've been playing since April 25th, 2009. I play in Green Harbor, which is a Shire in Polaris, and I love Barbarian.
And last but not least, Sir Warlord Death Lily Megatron Sunshine, something.
Hey, you did it. You robbed me of my intro. Oh no. What he said, and I just got mine. I'm pretty sure. I kind of forget the order. COVID is such a weird time for Amp Garden Awards, but I've been playing for almost a decade, and this class is one that I enjoy and have found a way to make it kind of fun, and the general consensus seems to be that it's underpowered. So it'll be fun to chat about that with you guys. I'm stoked to do it.
All right. So with everyone introed, we're going to go to our first question. Whenever we talk about what we want a Paragon to be, how do you get to Paragon, we've always got to set standards. So what is the difference between a level 6 and a Paragon? Let's start with Oddvar.
Level 6 versus a Paragon. I mean, you, at least in Polaris, you can play level 6 at any event. So you don't really have to know much to be able to play all the abilities when you're at an event. So it really comes down to how you can use the class and how effective you are with using the class. Can you teach it? Do you really shine it when you play it? Or I guess the things that I look for or tried for when I earned mine.
Nice. Mittens?
I feel like in many ways similar, and I know you're going to hear that a lot. But for me, it comes down to, like, this is the class that when you throw on the sash, people get worried. Like, when people think of that class, they think of you. I don't know. Yeah.
That makes sense. No, like when you put on the sash, when people think of you, like I know when people think of me, because Bard was my first Paragon, that's what they associate with me. And if that's what you are doing whenever you put on your sash or whenever you come to the field, that's a really good representation of like you are embodying that class in a very high level of play.
Yeah, like I'm level 6 in at this point almost every class, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to play a level 6 assassin the same way I'm going to play a level 6 barbarian. When people see me with a level 6 assassin, it's more of a, oh, I didn't know you played that. And when they see me with, you know, a white sash, then it's like, oh, okay, this feels normal, this feels right. We need to be careful.
You gotta be cautious. Yeah, it's not someone to just ignore on the field. Jamie, Deathly Sunshine.
Yeah, so almost in a different way, and this is, I want to try to say different things than I've said in some of your other videos that I'll be involved in, because I think that'll be more interesting than me harping on the same thing over and over again relentlessly. But when it comes to level 6 versus Paragon, and this is kind of neat, I almost want people to sleep on the fact that I'm good at some of these classes when they don't know it, which is kind of fun. It's a little contrary to the like, oh, they see me and they know, oh, that guy's a barbarian or something. I kind of want them to underestimate me a little bit. So then when I go and use my abilities, and usually for me, this is normally with the casting classes because I almost never play them, but I play them sometimes. But for Barbarian, the biggest difference that I see is, again, knowing like your place on the field and how to be the most detrimental to the other team. And if you pull a lot of pressure, then you're really doing your job. And some level 6s don't represent, I guess, what level 6 is. Like, it doesn't dictate skill to be level 6. But Paragon typically shows, like, this guy has really put the time in, or this person, I should say, and are very, very effective on the field. And that's what I would see the difference is look out for them, holy cow, and level 6. I'm level 6, and I think everything now, and I've never played monster. For example, I would be a bad monster, for example.
It's a different set of skills.
I think also kind of going off of what Advar said, where if you are somebody that others go to for advice on how to play the class, or hey, what abilities do I get at this level or this level, it's very similar to somebody who's a high level in various ladder awards, like somebody who's a master of an award category. You're going to come to them for advice just like you would come to somebody who is a paragon for that advice, or teach me how to do this thing. Like somebody who appreciates and enjoys their class so much that they want others to experience it as well.
It's a good way to put it. Broton?
Difference between a level 6 and a Paragon Barbarian, in my opinion, is someone who represents core of what the class is, or at least what their group decides what that class is to their region, and someone who can utilize and exploit the abilities when and when not to, especially with Barbarian, which really, it's like, if you are really good, it's like getting close to a Paragon. You have your own autonomy on the field, because Barbarian is the class that relies less on all the other classes, because you cannot be buffed at all, or basically enhanced anyway by other classes other than teamwork. So someone I keep an eye on for a Paragon, it's like, you know what your job is there. You know what to do. You know where to find the hole that you need to go to, and to benefit your team that way. Because, like, in Polaris, like Advar says, it's like we focus like a lot on combat. We like combat, and it's when someone asks me, "Is this person ready for a Paragon?" I'm like, "Are they worth three average people, 3 or 4 average people?" Because like, when I see Paragons, like someone who's like, I'm making a statement, I'm ready for my Paragon, they can make a bubble. When you see a bubble around someone on the field, that means you're doing your job right. No one wants to fight you. And you can see it's like a little effect without having it, especially with Barbarian, which is like, I don't want to fight that guy. He's just going to kill us. Or he wants us to kill us, and then he's going to kill everyone around him for 7 seconds. So
the fight after death. We'll get into that in a bit. So with our rubric kind of out of the way, let's go into 3 things you wish you knew when you started playing Barbarian or you started on your Paragon path. I find that these are oftentimes like things that people might not think about when they're starting, and it's a very interesting and I think fundamentally growing of the class and battle game tactics and strategy to know of the things you don't know to not know about, if that makes sense. With that, I want to start with Oddvar. What are 3 things you wish you knew when you started playing Barbarian?
3 things I wish I knew before I started playing Barbarian. Don't focus on credits. You really don't. It was a different game when I started. If you wanted to be, and at that time it was Master, just much like Mitten said, Master Barbarian, you had to have 100 credits in the class and this and that. Don't focus on that. You want to focus on actually playing the class, being good at playing the class. Experiment, do things that most people wouldn't normally do, and you got to try it a few times. You can't just try it once and say, well, it wasn't effective. Maybe you got to tweak it a little bit and just be interesting with it. Have fun. I mean, if you're not having fun doing it, then why are you here? And it's those are probably the biggest 3 things I can say.
The have fun is a big factor. If you're not having fun leveling or learning your class, do you use another class, or just don't use that class? Whatever. Our game's about fun. Mittens, 3 things you wish you knew.
I would say the first thing is probably, and they all float out of my head just like that. I know one of the things I was thinking is that kind of similarly to Oddvar is that there are many different ways to play Barbarian. And so kind of fiddling around with the ways in which you can use your abilities. I know that I would get stuck on like, oh, this one way of using fight after death was really effective. I'm going to just do that over and over and over. And then I'll go to a big battle game and I'll see other barbarians using fight after death in a totally unique way. And so then I would want to pick up on those things and like in addition and kind of move beyond just what I was able to figure out myself. Also, how can you, I know that Barbarian many times just kind of ends up being that person by themselves or a couple people by themselves, but find other people that you fight with, other classes, and see how the Barbarian can work with them. I know that you can't buff us, and so that makes things difficult, but there are other abilities or other strategies, I guess, that can be used that would be really effective that you may not think of right off the bat.
Yeah, we can't do indirect support on Barbarians. They can't be enchanted by any other class. But you still get stuck, stopped, or frozen in different ways. They're very rare compared to the classic ways, but it's still a support that people can offer. And then you can obviously see how different pushes and charges can work with different classes. Mixing and matching is very... it's something I think people forget to try and like think about, and they just go, I'm with these people all the time, and they don't think about how the classes interact. So it's a really good point.
I would say another thing is we were limited to a degree on our armor, but there's still a lot you can do with it. Figure out what armor works for you, whether it's metal or leather or cloth, what part of your body you're going to be wearing it. Are you going to be changing up what you're wearing depending on the strategy you intend to use for that game or that round? Like if I'm running around with a lot of chest armor, that doesn't lend well to fight after death, for example, because the goal is to keep your limbs, and so people are going to aim for the things with fewer armor. I found that leather and cloth is a lot lighter and easier to fight in than some heavier things like chainmail. So, just kind of fiddling around with weight, comfort.
Yeah, the Warriors had a lot to say about making your armor fit right. If it doesn't feel good, fix it, because that's just going to be a detriment to you on the field.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, and the third thing is kind of going with kind of figuring out your play style. I feel like a lot of people get in their heads that the Barbarian is this bloodthirsty, like frothing at the mouth rage machine,
Alka-Seltzer
which
chewing Barbarian.
yeah, which we can, but there are so many different styles of Barbarian, and just explore those. Like, I typically avoid that kind of that fighting style just because it is so common and people expect that, and so I'm able to get away with a lot more because I do something different.
Switching up your play style or changing what's expected. I mean, that's the basics of like feinting and fighting and some tactics and strategy. Is you make somebody expect something, you change what they're expecting so that you have an advantage over what was happening. It's a good tactic from like even stepping back from the class perspective. Broton, 3 things you wish you knew.
Right. I have a nice little list here, but luckily I did more than 3 because some stuff was covered. All right. Some stuff I wish I was told is you're going to get hit. You're going to get hit a lot. You're going to get hit real hard a lot of the time because
Everyone's nodding.
Usually the counter to a like raging barbarian is going to be another raging barbarian, and not everyone understands control over themselves because they get really big into the role play, and so be safe while you're doing it because you're going to get hit, you're going to get hard, you're going to get hit a lot. Sort of piggybacking off of what Mins was saying, armor is actually really important. It's something that, like, difference between average barbarian and like a Paragon barbarian, get yourself like some armor. If you have to choose like your first chunk of armor, get leg armor. That's a general rule all around. Leg armor is king everywhere you go, because all you gotta do is leg someone and walk away, and that's the day. All right, make it your own was covered by Mittens and Advar. Combat styles. Don't get hampered into like I'm only a sword and board barbarian, or I'm only a flow barbarian, or I'm only a pole barbarian. Really expand your horizon. It's like we have access to all the weapons in the game. Well, other than like certain we have all melee weapons in the game. It's like use it. Don't pigeonhole yourself for like the first 2 years of the game. I was just fighting flow, and I did not switch it up at all because I was like, this is king, until a polearm hit me so hard in the gut I threw up on the field, and I'm like, I probably should just switch it up to someone else. But it's just no one told me that, so little helpful information. And lastly, be safe. I'll hit on this with the fight after death, but be safe. This is the class that tends to get the most out of control. It's like I'll out myself. I was pulled aside once saying I was too wild in my earlier days, and I didn't think of anything at it at the time because I'm like, oh, I'm just having fun, until it actually like scared one of our new players, and that was like a coming to Jesus moment for me, and I'm just like, oh, okay, I guess that's something I needed to know. So it's just because we're barbarians, like Mitten says, doesn't mean we have to be the bloodthirsty, frothing at the mouth barbarian. You can be like a samurai or a gangster or a thug or insert whatever you want there. It's like barbarian is just melee type B. Make it your own.
It's very true.
Pass the ball to Jamie.
Yeah, Lily, what do you got?
Yeah, so I like what everybody's saying. It's all part of this neat thing that we have with Barbarian, where it is kind of it's like the step sibling of the classes. You don't necessarily like it, but like it has a place in your family, you know, like okay. But stuff I suppose that I would have liked to know. starting out, or that I think is useful or will be helpful for people, and maybe some of them have seen this, is how important gear is, right? We've talked a lot about that, but this is like even like the starter set. 7/7 was a different monster when it came to Barbarian. Like you couldn't use a shield when you were berserked, right? So like it changed to like, well, I guess I'm just using flow, or I guess I'm just using a pull. So and now with that not being a restriction anymore, you have a lot more versatility than people I think remember from the switch to current modern amp guard. Personally, I really like a 6-foot crushing breaking two-handed sword, because I have a lot of fun with that, and it's fun to run around and be like a big sword guy and do big sword things. But find what fits well for you. Use those things. It's really strong. A great example is a player here in Texas. His name is Badger. He uses two 48-inch longswords. He wears a single point of armor. He is very, very fast, and he backpedals doing da-da-da-da-da-da-da at everybody. And he gets a lot of success because he's found a way to use his athleticism, his build, and his weapons to great effect for him. And that was a great place for him to start. And if he wants to learn more things, and I've seen him branching into new equipment, so it's very, very exciting. So try everything since you get access to basically everything. Very, very cool. I couldn't support that more. It's a super, super, super awesome. Remember to use your abilities. The trap I fall into all the time at, like, let's say park level stuff when the games are only like 10 or 15 minutes long, is we might get to the end of that game and I haven't used anything other than like adrenaline or maybe like blood and thunder, but I forget about my brutal strikes or my fight after deaths, because I'm the next part is that kind of plays into this, is the trap that I fall into, and that's saving my abilities and not knowing when to use them. So remembering to use them is one, and then don't fall into the trap of saving them for too long. Look at what the game mechanics are, how long the game's going to be, and then remember to use it. Like your fight after death can be so powerful to helping your team push through to capture a point, or to push people off of a control point, or take a flag, or something like that. And man, is that it can be so devastating. And the wife has been a fun example, because when we could actually play Amp she had been trying to learn Barbarian, and she'd go out there and she's like, okay, here we go. And then the game would be done, and she's like, I didn't remember any of my abilities. I couldn't find a good time to use it. And so remember to find good times to use your abilities. I mean, that is important. You don't want to just like get lagged, die, and then go fight after death and go, crap, I got left in a field and it was pointless. At least you're keeping it in mind that you have them and you're trying to use them. But time and place, know it, and I don't know. I'm going around in circles. That's kind of my things. Your gear. Remember to use your abilities, and don't save them for too long. Don't get trapped by that.
Yeah, we'll hit on that. We'll hit on that later, because the Barbarian has the fewest amount of abilities that are per life or rechargeable out of any class, even percentage-wise compared to Druid. And some of your abilities are some of the most powerful and ridiculous abilities in our game, but we do see the often fault that people don't use it, or they use all of them right away, and then they are stuck with just one ability for the rest of the game. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. Actually, we can talk about some of it now, because it's common mistakes to avoid. So we'll start with Broton on this. What are some common mistakes to avoid?
Common mistakes to avoid is
Did we lose you? What just happened?
No, it's
okay.
I'm just like going it over because it's like there's a lot of mistakes I see. You know what? Common mistake is using all your blood and thunders in the first round. I've seen barbarians who use, like, if they have looked the part, use all three right away, and they don't even capitalize on it.
Mm-hmm.
They use it as a get out of a jail. Like, oh cool, I got hit, but I'm still moving away. Which is your level 6 ability. You should use it more in key moments. Adrenaline. People don't use adrenaline right. That is a big problem I see.
How are you saying they don't use adrenaline right?
Well, they'll use it when an enemy's within 10 feet.
Oh, they're just misusing the ability. They're not waiting for that 10-foot gap that you're supposed to on a wound trigger or a kill trigger.
Yeah. Which the majority of people, it's like, because I try to be chill about it when I inform people of it, and they're just like, oh yeah, oh no, my bad, and then it's like I will go off and engage some. This usually happens at a Kingdom 2 event, at Kingdom events. I notice this a lot, and they just do it again because no one's going to correct them, and yeah, it's people just don't care, and that's the ability that I see gets abused a lot. So use your abilities right. Use them at the right times. Learn colors of spell balls.
Oh, I see.
You are immune to a lot of, like, a good amount of spell balls, but a lot of barbarians don't. Either they're God bless their hearts. That's all I'll say, and I will move on because now I'm starting to get. Yeah, whoever's next.
No, so the colorblind is a point that actually I got pulled into a V9 focus group, and colorblind has been one of our really big focuses of like fixing some problems. And there's some cool programs out there that let you see the world in colorblind through your computer. I feel bad for everyone that's colorblind, especially the like tricone. That's terrible. You have 3 colors that you get. You get pink, blue, and black, and that's about it. And I guess technically white. It's really weird. That's a different rabbit hole. Mittens, 3 common mistakes. Not 3 common mistakes, just common mistakes.
Common mistakes. Kind of going off of that, not just spell balls, but also knowing other people's spells and abilities, because you're immune to command, and there are various command spells that somebody's going to start talking at you, and you need to have the confidence and the knowledge to just keep running at them and ignore them, because I've noticed that some spellcasters are aware that barbarians are, a lot of spellcasters are aware that barbarians are immune to certain spells, but will still try to cast them just to see if the barbarian will run away. And it happens a lot. I know I used to do that too at first, like, oh, somebody's talking. Too. Yeah, like some people start talking at me and I was like, oh, I don't want this. And when I play wizard, I'll do that. I'll give them the shifty eye and I'll start saying things, and they just run away because they
assume it's a death spell. They assume they're going to die.
Yeah, they don't know their own abilities. They don't know what I'm going to, yeah. So knowing other people's spells. Another one with Fight After Death, it's a great team ability. If you're trying to push in a game and you're trying to clear an area for your team to get into, let your team know, like, hey, I'm going to use Fight After Death here. It's not always planned, but a lot of times you can plan when you're going to use your abilities, especially with Fight After Death. Usually I'll drop chest armor, I'll pick up 2 swords instead of my shield, and I will let my team know I'm going to attempt a Fight After Death. When you hear me screaming, please please charge, because so often, especially at the beginning, and I remember seeing like Broton have this happen to him, and Lily have this happen to him, and just other people have this happen where I'll use a Fight After Death or they'll use one, and then you'll look back at your team and nobody's there. They're not helping.
Yeah, they saw you charge into the fray and no one's behind you, like, keeping up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like...
Sometimes it's just impressive. They want to watch.
They're just
in awe. They're like, wow. I don't get angry. You were just so impressive. I'm like, fine.
But
it's like I killed them for you.
Yeah. It's that's a field awareness thing, and I've realized that a lot of amp carders are not field aware. They're very aware of like this space here, and then outside of it, they have no idea what's going on. And if you are like 3 people down even from a Fight After Death barbarian, you should notice and go, but nobody does. They're just like, oh, that was nice. Okay, stick time. It happens. It's unfortunate. Battlefield awareness is something I think AmpGuard needs to work on as a whole, but we'll get there at some point.
It's a common trigger, though. It's when you get into a fight, your vision gets tunneled.
Yes.
You have to work to get above that. So it's just it's breaking training.
Right.
You know?
Your literal biology has told you that this is a threat. You have to focus on the threat, and you have to slowly work on opening that point of view so that you realize that everything could be a threat, and it's hard. It's tricky.
Yep. Absolutely.
But it takes time. That's not something to rush. Oddvar, you were speaking just now. So common mistakes.
The whole running in and dying thing, that worked all right for V7 Barbarian when you were trying to burn through those first 4 lives so you could get to your berserk. But yeah, no, that's not really what you want to do. And the whole like mindless barbarian thing, no, you got to have some tactics. You gotta go for the gold. I mean, barbarians want their booty.
They want that. They want the whatever your object is. I'm going to quote Teflon again. Objectives, objectives, objectives. It doesn't matter what the game is. If you're not focusing on the objective, you're not playing the game, really. You're just stick tag.
Yep.
I mean, it happens. Any other common mistakes to avoid?
I like those.
You like those? Lily?
There's nothing wrong with playing stick tag if you're real good at it. You might kill a lot of nerds, and then you know you helped your team anyways. But
I mean, that's a lot of skill.
It's true. That's true. So common stuff I see is like breaking your count and fight after death. People screwing it up and then trying to restart fight after death or whatever. If you break your count, it's tough, but you're out your ability. I think that's a bummer, and I don't like that. That sucks. Especially stuff for like clarifying for safety. I think that's just kind of you're trying to make this ability that is very strong fair, but you know, if I clock someone in the face and they go down, I'm like, oh no, I'm so sorry. Well, I just burned my per game kind of thing, and now I'm like, I want to make sure he's okay, and like that's important, and we should do that, but then you lose out on your very limited resources. So I hope to see a change in that. And I've preached about this before, but 8.5 would be cool. Maybe not V9, but you know, some updates would be neat. So breaking your count, counting too long or too short, that happens all the time. Your 7 seconds can be real long. It's also not that long. So at the same time, you know, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, well you had like 3 seconds of fight time. Like that's too short. Like, you know, I want to not have it be cheesed too much, but like 1, 2, 3 is a little closer to a full second anyways, you know, give or take on one end. And not saying to give yourself too much time, but don't rapid fire out your count. Like, make sure you only get 2 of these things. Let's make sure we get plenty of them, or plenty of time, you know, to make it fair. Knowing matchups is super important. The Barbarians, since they have some cool inherent resistances to things, it would be neat to see them players take more advantage of that. And if they're going to play that game and try to find good matchups where they can be successful on the field, remembering to
Oh, no. Discord has failed me.
Merrick!
Okay.
Where are ye?
This podcast is brought to you by Spectrum. Thank you.
Are you still going? Is it still recording? Because
the OBS is separate. I just want to make sure it's got everything. Okay, we are.
Okay, good.
I need to get my video back, but yeah, otherwise we're still good. Okay. Yay! Work for me in post.
There we go. Okay. So what I was saying is that when we're talking about knowing matchups, the thing that this kind of then plays into was that I see plenty of people when there is a spell, and this is where I think it's a little contrary to most people's beliefs, but they see a spell that's finally going to affect them, let's say like a stun. Depending on who's casting that stun, they only have a very limited resource when it comes to stun. Let's say a healer or something.
It's like 4 or 5 max or something.
Basically, and most people aren't taking that many when they're like the healer. They take 1, maybe 2, just to keep themselves alive. Well, cool. I'm happy to eat that stun. Like, it may cost me a life, but that's almost always worth it. If I keep track of their spells and I keep them accountable, like, I can ask to see their spell list. I can ask to know how many they have left. Like, that's fair. And if they want to lie about it, well, they're kind of cheesing the rules here. Like, it's, it's all fun and games, but let's keep each other informed of like what we have. How many points of armor do you have? It's the same thing in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm happy to eat the stun. Maybe I live, maybe I die, whatever. But now they maybe only have one left, or maybe they have 0 left, and now that healer is mine. I'm gonna get them. They better be able to fight. But this barbarian's coming. If they kill me, I still have fight after death. So I think it's a mistake to run away from some of these effects that can actually hit you. Make them use them. Like, too many people were like, oh no, it's gonna be stun, I better run away. Well, then they're never casting it. They have this indefinitely then, and you've never made an impact. So it's okay to eat the stun to die to help your team. And that's I'll leave it there, because I kind of touched on some of the other stuff that I think are mistakes. So just remember to use the abilities and things. So
yeah, it's you don't want to run away from every single spell that's targeted at you, because that's a legitimate tactic that spellcasters use as a shove. Essentially, we'll start a spell. If you run away from us, that was a shove. Like, we didn't even have to expend a shove to shove you. It did the same thing.
Well, and this even plays into it. A lot of times, if you're fairly spry, you can a lot of times close the gap and get a shot. You may not get every shot, you may die for it, but if I'm going to get stunned and probably die anyways, I might as well throw myself in there. Maybe I wound him, maybe I kill him, maybe I get brutal strikes off as well. There's a lot of things that can happen for taking that spell instead of just retreating constantly.
Yep.
It's a little reckless, but I think it has a place. I think it's an important skill to learn anyways.
I agree. All right, so we did our common mistakes. Where does Barbarian fit on the battlefield, roles, positioning, and meta? Let's start with Broton.
Where does the Barbarian fit on the battlefield? Barbarian fits either frontline, flanking, maybe mid. I mean, actually, they can fit more or less. It's like if you want someone guarding like the caster in the back, you have a built-in melee unit who's immune to 2 different schools that are there after your healers. But when I think Barbarian should be frontline or in a flanking unit. Their role is, I say this to my apprentices, I say it to whoever asks me, I think Barbarian is a shock troop compared to like a warrior. Barbarians have the mobility, they have decent armor, and they have built-in immunities to be able to crush and break open areas for your team to pour in through, make an anthill.
Do any of these kind of tactics and placements change with the size of the field?
I mean, realistically, I think Barbarians are more efficient the bigger the field gets, because the smaller the field is, the more easy the other team can focus the Barbarian. Because if you're 5-on-5 and you have like a bard on the other side who can just push the Barbarian around or hit the Barbarian with a terror, it just limits the other team down 1 player, and it just becomes offset like that. Or a wizard can just cut off the Barbarian's leg and just call it a day.
Yeah, wound him and then just leave him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's because the smaller it is, it's easier to focus. And the bigger the field, you can blend in with more people, because then there's more targets. And it's like at Kingdom events, I like getting like 3 other Barbarians and move as a flanking unit and just like attack from the sides. Or it's like if we see a weak line, it's put a regular pole arm in a Barbarian's hand. Cool, you have a crush break pole arm that's fast. And then you just do the normal tactics like a shield in front of that, and it's great teamwork ability. It's like you're, in my opinion, other than the caster, because casters are always best battle buddies. But melee unit, pick another Barbarian. You can like cover each other. So, it's my thoughts.
Advar, place on the battlefield.
Very similar. Although, I guess I take a little bit different take on a smaller battlefield. If you've got, let's say, a 5-on-5, I personally like being that lone barbarian going off on the flank, because you're creating an annoyance that they cannot take their eyes off of, because the second they take their eyes off of you, well, you got 4 people on your front that may take you down. So I mean, it's differences in play style. I mean, not everybody's going to agree on how they work their class, and that's why you have multiple Paragon Barbarians or in any of your classes. But at the base roots of it, flankers and hordes. I mean, that's my big thing about Barbarian. You either be an annoyance by yourself, make that, well, we can't take your eyes off of this guy or girl or person, or we're going to get overrun by the front. And if you're in a horde, I mean, working together with other classes, it's just as effective. So yeah, at the base, very similar.
Lily?
Yeah, so its place on the battlefield, just making sure. There's so much good information, I get kind of lost in the sauce. So my thoughts real simple: flanking. Holy crap! Flank. Get him. Oh my gosh, that's something that could have gone back to something I wish I'd known. The class is like a marathon runner class. Holy cow, is it strong if you're willing to move. It has its place everywhere else. My preference is the flanking part, and I've said that even for warrior. I'll say it for anything else that I'm in flanking. Heck, you're the archer, go flank them. Why not? Shoot them. Flanking's good. But if you're going to flank, and I'll be more specific, it comes back to matchups, and make sure that you're flanking to find your positive net valued like matchups. Like, take out these spellcasters who are ill-equipped to deal with you, and that flank then becomes very strong. But it doesn't have to be deep flanks, I guess, to specify. Like, if you've got 2 lines of people that are fighting, and when they're in close enough combat to hit, like between, let's say, 10 feet, getting just around that flank there and running through when you die and hitting your fight after death can clear out that whole thing, and you now have advanced your whole team. And that's at a large size. I mean, this is big scale games. Any game that's run with more than 40 people, you're suddenly pushing a whole line of people back because you made one very good kind of short flank. There's something to be said about the deep flanks. That's a different thing. That's when, like, let's say you're going so far back as to try to take out those backline healers for whatever, but that's a different thing. So its place in the battlefield for me is definitely about flanking. But I do have to preface this a little bit with your equipment matters then, because if you're ill-equipped to do this and you come up against that warrior that usually barbarians are considered to have a pretty good matchup with, you got to be kitted out though. Because if they're kitted out, your flank was kind of pointless, and you're going to lose to the superior class that is typically warrior.
Well, in like melee combat, because when it comes down to it, in melee combat, the 2 classes, one has 6 points of ancestral, the other one has 3 points of not ancestral. That's a very, very large difference in points and ability to block. And I think it's part of a carryover from 7.7 when Barbarian was the hard counter to warrior, and some people are still in that mentality that they need to still be the counter to warrior, even though it's transitioned to casters to just like shove the warrior in the corner by themselves.
Well, and that's great that you've said that, because typically I've almost found that I just avoid them at this point. If I'm not kitted out right, or they're on like their ancestral life, one of the many that they get, I'm like, this is not the primary matchup for me. I'm going to go find 3-point or less guys that I can deal with. Or if I know the fighting, let's say, skill level of an individual, so I can take advantage of getting like my adrenaline stacks up, just in case I get hurt in that 30 seconds, I got a chance to still get a heal, and it can keep me pretty mobile outside of that 10-foot, using adrenaline, blah, blah, blah. But this is getting to more tactic-y stuff. But its place in the battlefield then, I think, it just really comes down to all of that. Game size kind of matters. When we get to a smaller size, like the flanking's still super strong, you just can't ignore the barbarian who walks behind your team. It's like, haha, I'm here. Ta-da! They can do the frontline thing like everybody, like my peers here have said. They can do a lot, and I think they get underestimated some because they don't seem like they're that good, but they're solid. They're a solid class. I'll shut up now.
Mittens.
I think where the barbarian is really depends on the size of the field. Um, when you're working with a smaller group of people, I actually prefer to be more of that front and center, with like a shield or something, just because depending on who you're fighting with, you may be the strongest person in your party. If it's only like 6 versus 6, and you have like 2 spellcasters, an assassin and an archer, and then the barbarian, like you're supposed to be the one that kind of pushes in. I do love flanking though, and so I think the bigger the group is, the wider the field too. Like if you have really hard borders, if you're in like a gymnasium or you've got like, cones and tape and what's set out, um, it, that can definitely limit how much you're going to flank depending on the size of the 2 fighting parties or multiple fighting parties, depending on the game. Uh, I know with larger battle games, I will take a group of people with me who may not be the best fighters, and I will let them eat the like aggression of the other team while I go around.
You monster.
Spoken like a
They're
true
so
Barbarian.
nice. So like
It works.
So like it works though. You take like 3 or 4 people and they're all really excited. Yeah, they want to go fight, and they might be kind of new. They may not have all the armor, but they want to get in there. And you're the barbarian who's been playing for 8, 9 years, and you're just like, hey, come with me. I'll show you where to go. And then you're addressed with like 3 or 4 heavier fighters, and you just go right around. And if you're nice, you'll help out and like whack them in the back. You don't have to. But like when I've also played games where there are no borders, and if I wanted to, I could take the big walk all the way around to the backside of the enemy team, and then you just start walking up behind people real casual and hitting them on the back and hitting them on the back, and you just take out the whole team from behind. I really like that. I like the sneaky barbarian, just because it's not it's flanking good. I don't know how else to
Flanking
describe
good.
Flanking good. Flanking good.
With the newer
General
players, if you go get some like gummy people, like if you go get a healer and they go get some newer players and make them gummies, that's a really effective way to make that front distraction. Because now
like
they are, they're excited to run in there, and they don't technically die. I mean, they like die, and then they come back to the healer, and the healer pops them back up, and they keep going, and they do it over and over again.
Yeah, like don't be mean to your team or anything. I was gonna say
Don't
the other thing too.
exploit.
Depending on the people you're fighting, excuse me, if they know who you are and they know that you're a threat, you are potentially pulling aside 3, 4 people. You are creating a huge distraction, and I think that's really effective. If you are in a larger game where people don't know who you are and you may not appear to be a threat, I know that because I typically don't wear a ton of armor, and because I'm a woman, usually people ignore me, and that lends a lot to being able to exploit openings and weaknesses and taking out their spellcasters. So exploit when possible.
So we got a question from the audience, and we're going to go backwards in the way we just did. So Mittens, what is the class you go after first?
Usually I will try to kill the healer.
I mean, it's a support class. It's the ultimate support class. It takes out their little resurrection forms. That's a good way. Just go after the healer first?
I mean, if they have any sort of big support person, I will, kind of like Lily. At this point, I usually avoid anybody that's heavily armored, just because I will probably die, and I feel like it's a lot easier for me to take out anybody who's going to keep their team alive, or archers, just because they are able to kill from so far away, and so getting rid of that artillery, I feel like, is really important.
Break down the support structure in the artillery, the range. Yeah. Lily?
Oh man, it's so dependent on like the game type and like what we're doing. Life pool, the healer becomes just like a top priority thing. But honestly, it's whatever's in front of me, whatever they want to send, that's the thing that I kill. And uh, usually because of the flanking mentality, I don't see the heavily armored guy. They don't usually want to come out in a field because I'll play lightly armored, stuff I can move in, and I can kind of get that marathon runner in. And they're not sending the 6-point plate guy after me, and if they do, that's awesome because I'm just gonna like run away from him and leave him out in the middle of the sun like stroke heat like place. Oh, it's awful. Oh, terrible. So like that my team's gonna bog that guy down somewhere, but yeah, depends on the game. Healers, the archers, I'm mean. My mentality on archers is that most people can't shoot, so I just ignore them, and I typically don't get shot. And maybe they're shooting other people, but they're not shooting me. So like I'm like, okay, cool, like that's also fine. And I just run amok wherever I'm going. I know I talked about look for matchups and stuff, but I pretty much just try to bulldoze whatever's in front of me and get to the objective or make a path for my team to get to the objective. And if I got a bad matchup, I just hope I can outsmart that person and somehow win. So like, unfortunately, my advice on this one's not great. Just kill them all, let God sort it out.
Oddbar?
I depending again, like Lily said, on the class or the game. But normally I'm going to go after a magic class, somebody preferably top priority, somebody that knows their magic class a bit better, because I just kind of want to rub it in that a barbarian just took you down.
Just forcing that, like, you think I'm bad? Gah!
Yeah. But that's always been my MO, is go after the magic classes. So
they've got a lot of versatility, and killing a magic class normally means you're... Oh, no, we lost Mins. Normally means that you are doing something. I mean, there's very few times people run magic classes and are not doing things. Mm-hmm. Broton?
Well, I agree with everyone else. It all depends on the game, and it depends on what needs to be done, because usually it's like I'm super team focused, like what my team needs me to do, that's what I'll do. But left to my own devices, and I usually like will sit and like watch the other team move, and I go for this, without a better word, the smartest person on the other team. If you kill their commander, the teamwork just crumbles around on the other side. And it's, as a barbarian, we're not expendable, but our class is designed to go die. If I need to like spend a couple lives just being, hey guy who's telling everyone else to do, I'm going to be your friend, so you start making bad decisions. That's my goal as a barbarian. I'm usually they'll send some like spellcasters to try to stop me, and it's like I'm usually immune to what they do, and if not, I'm just soaking the spells, because like Lily said earlier, I'm actually in the same boat as him. I think we should soak all the spells we can, because our class is like literally built to like, our abilities are so per refresh. As long as we're not using it, if we die, oh no, we're down for a little bit, but we're not like, we use that one per refresh, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So cut off the head, the body follows. My logic.
Makes sense. So go-to abilities, things you need to know about your abilities, and hidden gem abilities. Let's start with Lily on this one. What are your go-to abilities or hidden gems?
So it depends on what we're doing, if it's a small game or not. In small games, park level stuff, a lot of times I don't bother with the armor, and some of that's from what we talked about before and playing down to keep the park kind of healthy, mm-hmm. Not necessarily not trying your best, but not covering yourself in armor. But that makes Barbarian stellar for pickup games. Like if I didn't bring equipment, and like maybe I just have a sword and shield, and that's not my primary go-to equipment. Well, gosh, I get to heal my leg wounds by killing people. Adrenaline is just baller. Like what a fun, easy ability to use. It's super super fun with the small pickup games, like I said. So like that, I think it's really strong there. Uh, it's hard to say that there's like hidden gems outside of the very obvious adrenaline, because their abilities are so great. Yeah, Barbarian, I love you. Natural immunity is probably the other thing. That's the fact that you have them is huge. But I don't want to speak too much because there's not that much to talk about on this. I'm going to let other people talk.
You've got five abilities.
So much.
I mean, you technically, you have more abilities listed that you can use multiple times than Scout does. So, because they all have like.
Yeah, but I also think Scout's pretty bad too. But that's a different one. So like,
Alvar, what are some go-to abilities or hidden gems?
Go-tos obviously Adrenaline, Blood and Thunder, keeping yourself in that fight. Honestly, my favorite hidden gem is probably Brutal Strike. I use that, let's say you catch that wound on the healer. You didn't kill him, but you wounded him, so you throw that Brutal Strike down. Are they going to be able to stun you now?
Nope. They also can't heal themselves unless they're running mass heal. But
yep.
That's like the warrior casting insult on the healer. They're now a lot more useless than they were 30 seconds ago.
Correct. And a lot of I feel like a lot of people find abilities like insult or Brutal Strike to be useless or one-trick ponies where, well, they just threw Brutal Strike in there so that a barbarian can stop another barbarian. Well, okay, yeah, it's got that use, but I prefer not to use that to keep a barbarian down. I prefer to use it to keep a magic class down.
Mm-hmm. It's suppression is a pretty big, especially if you're like doing combo hits. If you can suppress and then kill, can activate some stuff. Wow, my train of thought just exploded very awkwardly. Mittens, we just threw a cat off the other side of the screen.
What are my cords?
What are go-to abilities or things you need to know?
I think, again, just because limited, what's already been touched on is important. I notice a lot of people don't remember to use Adrenaline, and it's so it's so useful.
Jamie's offended.
Yes, but
it hurts when I see so many, I'll see other barbarians and they're just sitting on the ground wounded. I'm like, why are you here? Kill someone. So I feel like that's something that I've gotten, that I know that when I started, I wasn't using it as much as I should have been. And now I use it every single time. Like, you heal yourself. Why wouldn't you want to use it?
Mm-hmm. Broton, go-to abilities, hidden gems.
Go-to abilities. My go-to ability is Brutal Strike. Mainly because it is our per life ability, and it's like a lot of people like it because it suppresses. I love it because it adds curse. Having that curse is just cool. I just turned some bait for someone with a greater release or something like that, or a healer like coming in there to save their teammate. I like focusing. It's like if I notice the healer's babying someone, I'll hit that person with a Brutal Strike, and then I'll wait to have the healer come in, and I pounce on the healer. Yeah, so having that as a per life ability is pretty great. Hidden gem, I'll have to say Blood and Thunder, because my favorite thing to do with a Blood and Thunder is eating fireballs. Okay. Hidden gem there for people who don't know, because it protects you from the next wound, and that's what a fireball does.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing like seeing a wizard face as they peg you with a fireball, and you're just like, immune. Or point. Yeah. Or it's point. It's been a while, sorry. It's almost been like a year since we played.
Oh my god, really? Yeah. Terrible.
Yeah, it's like point, and there was like, what? You're a barbarian, and you're already on him, hitting him with your kill bat.
Your big swinging
So,
stick.
yep, it's always funny. So,
I think the adrenaline is the one that it gets underused when people, because they think about, they're like, oh, scavenge is so much better. Adrenaline's a heal. More people can use that than scavenge, technically. And it's for the barbarian, that's your sustainability modifier right there, making sure that you can keep up and keep going even if you get that wound. Because I mean, a warrior, if they get wounded, they're done. They're sitting there and waiting for a healer. You guys can just stab somebody and keep going. What are skills or things you want to focus on to get better, either in the game or outside the game? Let's start with Mittens on this one.
Skills specifically related to fighting, or like to the class? Because I mean, I know we kind of touched on it a bit, but just like cardio, are we counting this?
Yeah, that's a skill to get better at.
Okay, good. Because without being mean, amp guarders need to work out. I know that for a while, I used to do a lot of running and bike riding, and I noticed a huge difference on the field. I was able to go longer and without like getting super tired. When you're trying to run away from somebody that is too much for you, or if you want to chase down somebody that, like, there are a handful of people that you need to kill, and they're really fast, and just having the endurance to be able to keep going and kill the people that need to die. Yeah.
Cardio's been said on every episode so far. Just like get good, kid.
Yes, please work out.
Please work out. Jamie, things you want to work on to get better?
Well, having a beautiful smile always helps you get those kills. No, so some unique ones, and I don't think this has been touched on, which I think is kind of fun. We've talked about flanking, and we've talked about the rear flank, but what about the front flank? There's always a flank for you to run. Front flanking is a skill you can develop where you're actually running down the front of the enemy line, in between your line and their line. Because you're a barbarian, it's okay to die. And this is a real sketchy place to be, but when they kill you, you get to fight after death, and it is just a mess. People are like, this guy's just running through the front of everything. Your team can follow in, and they can start to rap, while you're the dummy who runs in between basically two teams karate chopping each other with pole arms. It's a weird skill, and you don't see it very often. It had gotten suggested to me by Monkey a long time ago as a thing that I could learn, and if I learned it, it would be devastating in games, and ditching specifically, and that's much harder to do. Depending on whether you're right or left-handed, it changes which way you're going to run down the flank, because you want to be most protected depending on your equipment, where your shield placement matters while you start to run, and they can hit you. So it's a very weird skill, and that we could talk about this one a lot in depth. We won't do that because this isn't about that particular thing, but that is a neat skill. Just next time you go and play, think about it. How can I run the line in the front, and see what that does for you. And the other thing I think is extremely important that we haven't talked about necessarily in this video is registering whether or not the spellcaster is casting on you or the person next to you or the person a couple down, because this enables you to have a free chance at a run at them. And we've already established the barbarian is good at dying. This is a great chance to get that healer who's on the line, not necessarily in the flanking scenario, but for you to get in there and maybe throw your life away. But if you take that wizard out who's like one person behind and you can get through, suddenly that takes a lot of pressure off your whole team. So if you see them or you register that they're casting on not you, perfect, great chance to try to jump them. And I think that's a neat skill, because hearing in combat is hard when there's so much going on, especially if you wear a helmet and you're playing as any of the class games. It's just extra difficult. That's the one. That's the ones I'll stop
at. Things to work on and get better. Advar.
I like multiple weapon types. Barbarians gear gets blown up a lot. Crushed shields or whatever may happen. You take an arrow on the sword or whatever. So like the day I started out, I started creating gear, and then I toss it around on the field all over the place, and just something got blown up. Well, I got something else right here. I can just get out there and javelins and multiple shields out on the field and multiple swords. I liked that. I liked being not have to run back to grab something. You can stay in the fight, maybe have something close. Yeah, you're going to take some risk to your gear, but then you're going to get good at making it again because it got broken.
True. I mean, between you and Shaft, when the field starts, it just looks like a graveyard of weapons. There's just their weapons scattered across the field. Works. Any others?
No, that's.
All right.
I like what's been said so far, and I'd like to hear what Proton has to say.
With that, Broton.
All right. Things to work on. I got 2 things. Confidence. Work on your confidence on the field, because you got to own where you are at on the field. Don't let spellcasters push you around. If they're not using their abilities right, stand your ground and be like, no, you didn't do that right, and go about your business. Because they have a leg up on us already. So if they are not using 2 descriptions or calling out your name, or if they are just doing a bad job, don't help them do their job better when they're bad. And it's just like, own what's like, you're here, you're a barbarian, know you are a killing machine, and that's what you're there to do, and just really be that. I mean, it's a long hill to climb up to. Just saying, be more confident. It's not the best advice in the world, but it's something to work on. It's just small little steps, because once you can own, it's like what you're doing, it's harder to be stopped.
And
the second thing, and the second thing to work on is, without a better word for it, work on like projecting, like aura, a vibe, just like hostility. It's like, and how to not project that. It's like how to be a threat on the field. Because it's like, one of my favorite things to do on the field as a barbarian is being happy-go-lucky guy, and then at a flip of the switch, just being super serious and very intense. And it's like, I'll notice like 5 people turn and be like, whoa, there's Broton. Where was he before? Kind of thing. And it's just being able to project that. It's hard to describe it unless if you see it and do it. It's like, I know like a handful of people who can do it really well, but once you get really good at that, it's one person turns into the multiple people threat, because it's like, oh no, we're fighting Mittens the Barbarian. Look, Mittens is over there. She doesn't have that smile. What did we do wrong?
Subverting the expectations and emphasizing and capitalizing on those subverted expectations. If you can make them not think you're a threat and then flip it, that's a feint.
And exactly doing it opposite too. It's like, it blows my mind when people would let me walk through their line.
I'm going to throw out there, it can be terrifying when you are smiling and killing people, and that in itself could be incredibly intimidating.
Well, that's true. Yeah, but
Keep
just
a big smile.
Like, a lot of amp guiders are hard at reading like social interactions, so capitalizing on that more or less. It's, oh, this person's like being happy right now, or this person looks upset, better avoid, or it's like, yeah,
being able to either make yourself look like a threat or make yourself not look like a threat, so you can emphasize on the flanks, and be a really big skill or tactic to learn, so that you can emphasize and push those flanks the way you want to, or get farther into those deep flanks, like Lily was saying, so that you can make those happen without pulling the giant warrior or something like that. All right, to the question that everybody really, really wants to have answered. What is the best use of fight after death? Well, we're going to start with Lily on this one.
Right on. Best use, well, is to remember to use it. That's like the dumb answer, but it is why I've done it myself. I still do it sometimes, depending on game size. Under 10 minutes, I may fall into that trap, and I hold it and I don't use it. And the best use is to remember to use the fight after death, even if you burn it. That sucks. But really, I think the short flank is a really strong place for it, or like in a game type that involves control points, something like that. And let's say their team has got a 5-man or something, or a 10 person thing sitting on there. That fight after death can clear them off and give your team a chance to get there. So even if you kind of go in like the shock trooper thing, like Broton's talked about, you can make a big impact with fight after death. And just using it out in the field on the flank alone against one guy, it's not worth it. That's cool that you killed that one person, but unless the objective was to kill that one person, it's really just like a blown ability. So finding a good opportunity is if it helps your team take a point, or basically maximum impact. Like you want to get as many bodies as possible stacked up when you do this. The attention grabbing is cool. We kind of talked about it in the last little section, but if you project vocally the loudest, angriest, playfulest, fire after death, it's just as hard as you can, the amount of people that and then start fleeing, they fail the morale test and they break. Like it's a real world example of that exact thing, and it's really, if you're quiet about it, like, okay, maybe in fight after death, yeah, you might get a couple people, sure, but people running and fleeing, hell, they're not even trying to defend themselves anymore. Now it's just running down the scared villagers or the peasants, heave ho, so that's probably my quick thoughts on it, so other people can say more.
Oddbar on that one. What is best use of fight after death?
I like that controlled chaos, and we've touched on it probably more than once during this session, is that communication with your team and being like, hey, this probably is going to happen right about here. You can break those lines, get everybody looking at you, and your rest of your team can run in and just take care of it. Because kind of like Lily said, that one, if you're going to kill one person with fight after death, that one target better be really, really worth it. But yeah, organized chaos.
Broton?
Best place, best use of fight after death is, like Lily said, the mass. Well, they don't call it a barbar bomb for nothing.
True.
You go where it's going to cause the most damage. You yell as loud as you can, then kill as much as possible. I mean, Lily, you hit all the points I wanted to hit, and because it's like game objectives, you can clear a node. If you need to get through a door, you can explode through that door, and it's like probably the other thing that can be used for is like one of the best distractions in the game. If you want your team to hit on the right, you go to the left. Soon as you fight after death and like everyone looks over there, your team flanks as hard, just watching like a hammer hit a bunch of dolls.
You get that hammer and anvil with not a hammer and anvil. It's a hammer and a clown on the one side. You're just like, look at me.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, the downside of or I guess the analogy breaks because the clown is deadly, so it's more like hammer and it. So
hey, if you believe hard enough, it is nothing.
Mittens, where does fight after death best?
It is when the people you are fighting feel genuine fear and what's the word I'm looking for? Not shame, but like when they've realized they've made a terrible mistake, when it's that genuine feeling, it's the best. So when you walk up with no armor on your torso and you have flow and your arms are wide open, you walk up to that newish guy who's feeling really strong and important. He's like, oh, I can do this. I'm gonna kill her, yeah. And then they stab you in the chest, and all of his teammates look over, and it just that like the blood drains from their face, and like, what have you done? It's the most joyous feeling. And then you kill the team. So yeah, that's the most satisfying. I think another one that maybe not the most effective, but one that normally when you think of fight after death, you think of it as a very, very like offensive ability. But for those spellcasters in the back who may potentially get swarmed, or if you are defending a certain point and the enemy team is closing in, even if it doesn't necessarily save your team, if it doesn't wipe out that other team or the other offensive, it gives your team a chance to regroup, to pull off a fight after death at the base, or at, with your spellcasters, to just clear everybody away and potentially hopefully kill as many of them as possible.
So like a counterflank to get some breaks and regroup. That's one I hadn't thought of using. With like, if you are getting crushed on the right or left side or whatever, and you need to make that push, a fight after death could potentially break their flank and just allow you to regroup and reset that line. That's a good tactic. How to spread out your abilities and remain a threat through long battle games. So Barbarians you have one per life, everything else is per refresh, and then you have traits, which the immunities are all the time. How do you guys spread your abilities out effectively and still remain a threat throughout the entire battle game? We'll start with Oddvar.
In a long battle game, it's kind of knowing that it's going to be a long battle game. You got to pick your opportunities. What's going to work the best? Basically, in big battle games, that's where I really like to take that lone wolf annoyance. Not necessarily aggro draw, because I don't want to draw aggro until it's too late. That kind of deal. So yeah, I mean, knowing that it's going to be long and picking those great opportunities.
Makes sense. Mittens?
I tend to be very like objective based when I play games, and so I will think of the game that we are playing and the objectives that we are playing, or that we are trying to accomplish. So if I'll try to keep those in mind, like, oh, if we have to push this load to a certain point at this junction, and especially like at the end, I'm going to want to make sure that I've saved a fight after death for that purpose. If it's to just like whittle down a team's life pool, then I'm going to make sure that I'm focusing on when are a large number of people clustered together, or if they're trying to, in reverse, if they are making a push towards us, when are those pushes going to most likely happen? If it's a timed game, and you're going to have a 5-minute time between each checkpoint or whatever, wait till near the end so it's more effective. If you blow a fight after death at the beginning of a timer, or they have enough time to revive or whatever, and it's not as useful. So I try to keep them related a lot to the game mechanics and the objective.
Makes sense. Spreading them out based on needed pushes. And I think that's something some people might need more tactical or strategic mindset to use, but a strategic or tactical mindset is going to help you in every class. So it's going to help no matter what. Emphasize on your ability to be strong outside of your class with your class. I like it. Broton.
It's like I will figure out like how long the game is, and if we're going to have any refreshes. If we're going to have refreshes, then time out the per refresh to that. And other than that, it's all about utilizing your per refreshes to opportunities.
Mhm.
It's like, realistically, unless if an opportunity arises, I don't use my per refreshes. I'm hyper focusing on Brutal Strike, Adrenaline, and Berserk, and just my pure fighting ability.
Mhm.
Because it's like, if the game is like some games that keep are like an hour long,
Yeah.
I'm not going to blow my 2 Fight After Deaths and my 2 to 3 Blood and Thunders in the first 20 minutes or first half an hour.
Mhm.
It's like, because like Min says, it's like the best time to use abilities are very strategically, and not just Barbarian. Other classes are thinking that exact way too, and they tend to have more of them. So it's like, you have to be very precise when you use your abilities, because it's like, we've all fought a team where the Barbarian just like blew their Fight After Deaths real.
Mhm. No. Now.
Eric's back.
Merrick, why?
God.
Why, Captain? Why?
Discord has failed me twice. We're still recording. Okay, we're good.
Oh,
All
we're
right.
still recording?
We're still recording. So
Oh,
luckily
okay.
the recording software is separate from Discord. So
Oh.
when Discord crashes, the recording just gets to like record my frustration and yelling at the world.
Okay. Yeah, because it just goes back to the difference between level 6 and a Paragon. We know when to use our abilities.
Right.
Our
Emphasize.
very set number of abilities.
It's not a lot.
Yeah.
But they are. I think they're probably some of the most powerful when used correctly. If you time them out correctly and use them at their peak, they're very strong.
Yeah.
But they have less general usability and repeatability. I mean, mainly because they're per refreshes and not per lives or something.
You put a Barbarian against anyone in armor below a warrior, our Berserk is it's a godsend. It's like, oh cool, 1, 2, right on the chest, you're dead.
Yep.
I'm gone.
I mean, especially because
unless it's a paladin or anti-paladin, they have full set.
But even with that, ancestral armor is not an enchantment that a lot of healers take. So a lot of those people that have physical armor aren't able to deal with multiple shots. If you are facing someone with magic armor, they've got a max of 2 shots, so it's still only 3 shots to kill them.
Yeah.
Because it's magic. So that's a good thing to keep in mind, is that you have traits, which can be. I mean, it's a constant. It's literally an infinite ability. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to activate it. It's there. Utilize it. So, what are some weaknesses you need to be aware of?
Lily, what's your thoughts on this?
Oh, Lily, my bad. Sorry, I got confused. The cut.
I have thoughts.
Lily, speak, Lily.
Okay, so how to spread out your abilities throughout a long match. So I got a few things, and I think they all kind of play in again. If you're gonna fight after death, for example, gosh almighty, I sure hope that you're gonna guarantee a score. And I don't necessarily care about like, let's say one of these big games that keeps an hour long, it's a 5 node cap game. If I fight after death and it's early, I hope, and my goal is to guarantee that we got a score there. If we guarantee a score there, my team may be up. And so even though that's right away, maybe in the first 2 minutes, the first 5 or 10 or 15, like I still guaranteed my team has now met one of these objectives and has put my team hopefully ahead. And that ends up becoming super, super duper important. Or using it to deny a score for the enemy team. That's another fantastic use. Like, okay, we didn't score, but they didn't score, and that becomes really good. Really, I should have probably started with this. You're going to run out. It's just, if you're using your abilities, you're going to run out. And that's okay. The thing I like to keep in mind is, what was my gain from this? What did I bring to the game because I used my abilities? I used them. I used them all. I'm totally out. I'm down to just my martial prowess and, well, make sure you bring armor because that's part of your kit. you're going to be able to more valuable every life then after you run out of your abilities. But if I made gains throughout the entirety of the time that I use my abilities, hopefully that is enough to put my team into a positive position that we can then hopefully ride out to the end of the game. Once I've done that, I might now switch my tactic completely and start doing something else. Like maybe I fill in gaps in front line fighting. I switch to a pole arm and start pole arming my way to victory with, I don't know, I got so extra bright in here. If everyone sees that, that's nothing, literally nothing's changed. I don't know why I did that. Sorry.
Okay, you're in sepia.
Lily, did you have an idea?
I did. In fact, use a pole arm, kids. Friends will love you. But just keep in mind, what did your Blood and Thunder gain you, right, when you were using that? Did it suddenly eat that fireball like we had in an earlier example and allow me to push a flank and kill them so we could score like that? Okay, maybe it was in the first 3 minutes, but we gained a point and that pushed us ahead, or it denied them a point and pushed us ahead. And you can always bring tons of equipment like everyone else has said, and now you have this big arsenal of things plus your infinite abilities that you can take advantage of for the rest of the game. It's not exciting, it's not flashy, but it is strong, and I keep that in mind, and that helps me stay focused and feel like I'm not just like, why would I play this class? This is dumb. I don't get to do anything all game. Yay. So anyways, it's a little scattered, but that stuff I think all comes together into a positive use of abilities over a long game. Otherwise, I guess just, I don't know, like, oh, how much time is left? 30 minutes. I haven't used anything. Okay, I should probably use my abilities now.
Should start going it now. All right, so now that Jamie's got a chance to answer and speak his mind on that, what are some weaknesses you need to be aware of? Let's start with Broton.
You can't be enchanted. You can't fix your own gear.
Well, hold on. You can fix your own gear if you're willing to spend 60 seconds at base.
You know, you take that logic and you go back to base with the broken equipment.
Facts.
I have extra swords on me. I don't need to go fix that sword.
That's a better answer than 60 seconds at base. Also, give it to a dead person. Anytime a dead person pops with equipment, it's all fixed.
Hey, I know you're originally from Wisconsin. You got to bring that cheese in here?
Yeah.
Yes.
I need to get better quality.
Go home, Broton. Go home.
I am home.
Well, go home harder.
Okay. Wow. You have a set amount of per refreshes, and I will pass the ball to someone else because it's the class.
It's the class. Mittens, what are weaknesses you need to be aware of?
Adding on to that, you only have 3 points of armor, and just be aware of what it's going to be made out of, where it's going to be put on your body, and how long you're going to be willing to run around in it, because it's going to be heavy and hot and uncomfy after a while. I don't want to take all of them. So if at the end there's more, then I'll chime in again.
All right. Lily.
So the class has some issues, and mostly I think it's balancing related for what V8 is currently. They are still a good class. Barbarians are still strong. They still have a place. They are still useful, and they can definitely make an impact in the game. Typically, the weaknesses are, in my opinion, we run out of abilities. It's not flashy. That is really hard for most players to manage, and that becomes the issue. The people that are really good at the class and have spent the time to cultivate the skill, they get more out of it, and that's great, and they make this a very functional one. But for the average player, they're getting kind of the short end on this one, and that's really unfortunate, because we want it to be fun for the mass majority, not necessarily the people that are like, okay, I like Dark Souls, so I'm gonna go and beat my head against the ground until I'm good at it. Like it's so hard. So we talked about that a little bit already. Broton had commented on that. I don't mind that they can't be enchanted, but that's kind of my play style, as I mostly ignore enchantments from my teammates so they can give it to other people anyways. And it's an inherent flaw probably in the class, but like it's already real strong with the immunity. So like I get so torn on like, is it really a weakness, or is it something they've done to try to balance something that could easily get out of control? And this class could potentially get out of control if you start putting refresh abilities onto, recharge abilities, for example, or just making them per life. Because a fight after death, I can recharge,
Oh God.
or whatever, is now incredible. Like that one change would make this crazy. So
If you want to see the fight after death per life, someone go play a boar. They have fight after death per life. It's terrifying.
And it's crazy unbalanced, right? Like
Oh,
suddenly
yeah,
this
100%.
thing is monstrously unfun for everyone around you. So in the future of Amtgard, I really hope that they make some changes. They just got to be careful. So in my opinion, I don't think it's as weak as everybody makes it out to be. I just think for the majority of people who haven't taken the time to learn the skills, it's going to be hard.
It's got a high learning curve that people often don't overcome. So they're all sitting down at the bottom, not utilizing their abilities to the fullest extent, and it feels weak compared to these very easy access classes like Assassin, which is literally you walk in and you're at top.
Exactly. I mean, look at just even a warrior. If you have the same level of armor, like a 3-point warrior can be a monster. You know, it's so interesting how this works out. But anyways,
Avar.
So yeah, pretty much everything's been touched on. I guess one thing I'd say focus on is knowing your weaknesses, because kind of like it's been stated, just not pointed out, is there's a lot of classes that you may be weak in something, but that class will give you an ability to make you stronger and allow you to do something. Well, Barbarian, it's kind of the opposite. You need to know what you're weak against and kind of take and put yourself into a better situation. I mean, I like to call it the lesser anti-paladin for a reason, because, you know, it's kind of that. It's a building block towards that.
It makes a lot of sense. I mean, you have Anti-Paladin's got 4 points. Barbarian's got 3. Brutal Strike is the same. You learn about Terror because it's what bards can use against you, and then when you turn into an Anti-Paladin, you get it. So that's kind of an interesting trade-off.
It's still Awe.
Is it Awe? It's Awe, my bad. Yeah. You learn about Awe, and then you get to use it.
2 immunities, one of which is the same.
Yep.
One of which is not, but flame instead. But
gets around a lot of things. The 2 immunities is something a lot of people overlook as a trait that is super powerful, because
very much so.
Immune to command and subdual is 98% of all CC in the game.
Well, it's why Barbarian for me is mostly my pub stomp class. Like, I can kind of just show up and go, and those immunities, like, if I don't know anybody, all of a sudden I'm like, well, it's cool. I got protection. You know, I came sort of prepared just because I'm playing Barbarian. You know, no armor because I had to fly somewhere or something. Like, well, cool. I'm playing Barbarian. Like, I can get my Blood and Thunders, or I can just heal myself. You know, just pick good matchups and go. It is a strangely placed class right now that is widely believed to be kind of weak.
I was going to say that's one of the reasons why I enjoy playing it so much. And if I do not come prepared, because spell classes, you need to have a spell list. Warrior, you want to have armor. Archer, you need a bow. Like, there are all these requirements. But if you just want to show up and start playing right away, Barbarian is so easy. And so that's my go-to class.
I mean,
I'll be as bold enough to say I think Barbarian is the best class for newbies.
That's what I used to recommend.
Better than Monk. Boom. Oh wait, it's that's we could do that for hot takes. Never mind. I retract that. I'll say it later.
All right. The only concern I have with giving Barbarian to newbies is when you give Barbarian to newbies at an event, and then they go, I can do what with Fight After Death? And they jump at people. And that's a safety issue that is
That sounds like our opinions on Fight After Death.
That is an
Well, and
opinion on
it's
Fight After Death.
it's not even necessarily a safety issue for the people around the poor newbie who's doing it. I feel bad for the newbie who's
Yeah.
about to get karate chopped by like every single person that can hit them. And then unfortunately, and this is not always the case, and I don't want to say that AmpGuard has a culture of perpetuating violence towards, silly people or something like that, but people can get kind of salty, and then suddenly it's like, this kid just like wildly came at me, so I just, and then everybody does it, and then it's like, oh no, that poor kid, what an impression that would make. I mean, that guy might never come back, not because he doesn't know any better to be safe, and the veterans can fail here and unfortunately brutalize the kid a little bit, and that's uncool. So that's almost a trap and can lead them to bad times.
Yeah. I mean, what is it, level 3 you get your first Fight After Death? Or is it level 2?
3.
3?
Three.
You've got at least a little time in the game then. Even if you've gone to just like big events, you're not
Well,
using
Fight
it.
After Death is 2.
Is it 2?
Is it 2?
Is it? I thought it was
Adrenaline is 3.
So you've still got, what is it, 4 weeks under your belt? 5 weeks under your belt?
You hope.
You hope. You're right.
Because
Lily, I'll bet you a Coke.
It
'Cause then-
really is, man. That's wild. 4th level, I was getting confused there. Yeah, Fight After Death at 2nd, Adrenaline at 3rd, Fight After Death at 4th. There we go.
Words.
Sorry,
Shoot.
my bad. I was like, is it really that order? God, it's been so long since I've had to look at it.
We don't play enough low-level battle games, and I think it's an atrocity. Ice Haven started doing first, second, and third level class games so that our new players could practice any class they wanted and get the feel of it, but also they wouldn't be scared of the level 6 person over there. And it was really fun. It was also really challenging and interesting as somebody trying to get better at Bard. I was like, oh, what do I have at level 3 again?
I was gonna say, like, I have been to parks where you'll sign in as your class and then they'll never play a class game, or especially during COVID times, but even before that, a lot of times you could sign in as whatever class you wanted, and even if they played a game, they wouldn't check for it, and you could level up a class, and all of a sudden you're level 4, 5, 6, and you've never or rarely played the class, and so still a lot of people are going to be unprepared. You're going to see a lot of inexperienced people make mistakes that could potentially be harmful.
Yeah, that might be a cultural change we have to work on, than a rules change. It possibly is a rules change we have to put in, but it's tricky to teach training of safety and like keeping that in mind through a set of rules that are designed to hit people. Like, it sounds
So
slightly
Merrick, as a
counterproductive.
heads up,
Yeah.
I'm going to say I've got about 20 minutes here, and then
Okay.
I got to bounce, my man.
All right. Then let's move on to recommended tactics. And we'll start with you, Jamie, on that. Recommended tactics, either target acquisition, offensively and defensively as well.
I mean, we've hit it so many times throughout this video already. Flanking. Holy cow, is it just so super powerful? What a tactic to learn. This is something you can practice at basically any time, not necessarily in 1v1s, but you can do this at your park level. You can do this in sparring with a couple of people. Even a 2v2, you can start working on trying to get around just the person in front of you even, and that's such a challenging skill to learn, but you have a lot of opportunities if you're creative to learn this, and that right there will go a long way. What was the question again? What was the other part? I know it was
target acquisition, either offensively or defensively. We went over it a little bit.
and yeah, we touched on that too. Like, we even running through like, who do we kind of target first? Well, it can be the healers, right? Like, that's usually a great choice. I mean, at any level of play, I mean, park level can be super detrimental. If you've only got like 6 people, you play a life pool, your team has no healer, well, crap, we lose unless we kill that guy. So it turns into this really neat thing. So I think we've touched on it a ton. I don't have much more to add outside of find creative ways to work on these skills, and that can be as simple as just finding a couple friends to practice it, even like 2v1s and things like that, and how you can, the 2 can flank the 1. It's an interesting little trait, but that's what I got for that, I think.
Mittens?
Yeah, we did really talk about this a lot.
What to say? Is there anything that people want to add to like tactics or target acquisition? No? We're good. Cool.
Not really.
We'll just move on. We
I
talked
have
about.
Since you said it, I guess that one small thing we had touched on in another class, which is why I didn't really think about it, and it falls back into kind of flanking. You've done your job if you start to flank and they send more than a singular person after you. They send one person after you and you kill them. Congratulations, you've killed one of their people, and they're going to go walk back to spawn. You've contributed. They send 2 people after you. If you can beat those 2 people, excellent. If they send 3 people after you, you really don't have to engage them anymore. They now have 3 less people. If we're talking even number games, you've taken 3 people away for the price of yourself. And that's pretty strong. And you can take them on a merry jaunt away from battle. And if you can get away from them, you can continue on to everything else. And now you're just pulling body after body as they try to kill you. Watch a new kid do it. They don't even know what they're doing yet. And they've already discovered something very powerful. And that's running around through the backfield and pulling all kinds of people after them. You'll see smart players not chase them. They're like, nope, we're not doing that. But the people that get caught up in the moment of like, oh, there that kid goes, let's get him. And now you've got 8 or 10 people chasing some poor, athlete or, high school kid who just never has to stop running, is all hopped up on Mountain Dew and just like doing their thing, So
it's
that would be
that annoyance.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's probably just as important. And I see this even in outside of playing Barbarian. If we're just doing like team fighting stuff, I really want my teammate to start to put some pressure and circle around, or for me to circle around and see what that does, and starts to do all kinds of cool things that people I think will start seeing if they start doing it. Flanking. I can't sell it enough.
Sell the flank. Anything else we want to talk about on tactics?
One thing I want to quickly throw out there is for using Fire After Death. That's when we get shield breaking. If you see a shield wall out there that does not have any hardened shields or imbued shields, nothing is demoralizing than watching like 3 to 4 shieldmen all lose their shield as you just chop your way through, and maybe you kill them, or either way you made a hole where your team funnels through because you just destroyed their wall.
Mm-hmm. It's that might even be more effective than actually getting the kills, because if you have your team there and you're running that front flank like Jamie was saying, and you're just like drum rolling through shields, just break, like getting through all that, you've now taken out half of their defense. Those shields are giant targets on them now that all your polemen have to do is poke to now wound that arm, do it again, you're dead. It's a good sequence that you're not even getting the kills for, but you opened up the ability to just wipe a line because all their defense is gone. Anything else on tactics? Okay.
Get good.
So now we get to the question that I think is the most important question we have to ask every single time. How do we get better and not ruin people's fun? We see it constantly when people start getting higher in Warriors. We see it when people start getting higher in Paragon. They start changing battlefields very rapidly, and especially at park levels, we don't want to ruin people's day. We want to let everyone have their chance to have fun and play. So how do we, as people trying to get better at Barbarian, how do we get that opportunity to get better but still not ruin a park day? We'll start with Aardvar in this one.
Role play. It is a role-playing game. That's a prime opportunity to kind of focus on that aspect of it. Or take something that you're not good at, absolutely not good at, and try to get better at it in that scenario. When I could roll the field with this, but I'm no good with this, it's a good time to pick that up.
Yeah. You've got the entire kit of melee weapons. You might as well learn all of them.
Yep.
Or at least be proficient in all of them. Mittens?
Couple things. Thing number 1, maybe don't target the new people. Like they're easy targets, but also they're the ones that you want to have the most fun, so they'll keep coming back. So give them a break. Or if you do end up, 1-on-1 or 2-on-1 or whatever, because sometimes they don't know. Especially if they're new, they're not going to know who you are. They're not going to know your skill level, and they're going to think, I can engage with this person. Don't fight as hard as you most possibly can. That's something that I've kind of started doing over the last couple of years, not only with more of the role playing, but also just like, I want to have fun. And if I'm getting so aggressive or so focused on winning that I'm not having fun anymore, that I'm throwing weapons in the air or stomping off the field, or they were cheating, like, I'm not having fun, they're not having fun. Dial it back. Change your attitude. You might start strolling on the field, or change up your tactics. You don't have to always do what's the most efficient. If there are new people on your team, join them. Do the thing I had mentioned earlier, except don't let them get squished. Take some of those new people and kind of guide them towards targets that are attainable for them, and become less of the main fighter and more of a mentor.
Gotcha. Lily?
Yeah. So this is a really important topic. How to stop from ruining people's fun while increasing your own skill level, or while you're already at, like, let's say, the peak of your skill level and not making it terrible for people. Like, what a great thing to talk about. I've usually I've usually gone to the playing down kind of method, whether it be I still try and I still put forth effort. I'm not trying to give away wins and stuff, but I might play single sword and choose something interesting with my kit to use in my other hand, and maybe that's all I'm doing today, like, let's say, a javelin, for example, or maybe I'm dual downward flails today, and I'm trying to do something like that, and just having a good time, being very energetic and smiley, and having fun in that regard. Because there's armor kills parks, at least it can, if you show up in your full kit and you start these new players can't deal with that already, like, let alone this person's general skill level. It can be such a insurmountable goal for them at the time, and they can get there eventually, but it's really hard when they're new. So playing down doesn't mean not playing hard. I want to make sure to say that. But as Mittens has kind of pointed out, like, you can encourage these new people that come out to do great things and to be awesome, and then celebrate their successes while you're playing. So, like, getting them to be like a flag runner and defending them as they're, like, running through the mess of violence that's going on, and the arrows flying around, and it's just like out of a movie for them, and it's so exciting. And suddenly they get to be the hero for a change, and they get to score, and it's like, you did it, maybe not a high five and after COVID world, but whatever, like, you did it, you're awesome. I that was so cool, you were so close to getting hit, that's amazing, I can't believe you made that whole run. We did this is a beautiful thing, it's super cool. High enthusiasm. And the last thing that I do is I may ask the person if they're ready, because they might be a little scared, or they've seen the better I've gotten, the more I've noticed some of that, and it's kind of a bummer, because I want them to have fun too, but they maybe see me do some high level fights with somebody or something, and it's very intimidating suddenly, and I'm like, I'll tap their sword and I'm like, okay, are you ready? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, okay, here we go. And then you can play around with it a little bit, and you can hit their equipment and whatever, but ultimately I give them a good fight, I try to win said fight, and if they're successful, even if it's just an arm or whatever, it's going back to encouragement and being like, that was awesome, you got my arm, that was super cool, that was a really good fight, thank you. And then going on to do the next thing, and repeating this process all day, every time, relentlessly, never stopping, being positive. Okay. But that's it. I know that's super long, but I think that this is a really important topic, and it's really key to growing those parks. And we're human, so we fail and we get upset sometimes, but hopefully we just kind of roll with it and try to apologize if we have slip ups and stuff. So but anyways, that's what I got. I'll shut up.
Broton?
See, well, how to get better and not ruin other people's fun. For Barbarian, I pick higher point targets, like the harder skill. It's like I'm out there looking for that warrior in high point armor to see. It's like, all right, let's see if I can grind away on this. So my newer teammates don't have to deal with the high point armor out here, or the wizard or spellcaster on their team that's like from a range is like picking off people. It's my job to do that, and it's making me play around with other abilities other than the easier target going in. That's not helping me get better, and it's the easier target is usually the newer person, and it's like I don't feel after playing. I don't feel good about crushing the guy who's been out for 2 times, and it's just I just hacked him like the first 2 minutes of the round. Um, yeah, picking higher scalability. It's like when I visit Ethereal Tides, I'll usually gung for Belthil out there, and it's whatever it doesn't matter. If he has a stick in his hand, he's better than me, and I know it. So if I'm a melee unit, that's my target. If I can tie him up or do something against him, I am improving my ability and helping my team. The other thing, like other folks said, is like encouraging new people. I personally like picking a battle buddy. I'll look for someone who's been out a few times. They have a general idea what's going on. If they're playing Barbarian, all the better. If not, still, I'm just like, hey, you want to be my battle buddy for this game? And they're like, what's that? We're the dynamic duo. Let's do this. And it's more or less, I'll take them on my normal route, what I would do. And it's like, whatever it's like I would do, I would suggest to them. It's like, hey, I will distract over here. Do you want to go from the side here? Like really explaining my thought process, because that's helping me break down my actual motions on the field. And then they understand, instead of just look at Broton, go over there doing the thing. What does he do? I don't know. To cool, this is what's happening, and now you can do that thing too. I believe in you. You got this. Like Jamie said, super positivity all the way, and that's Bye, Mittens.
We'll get her back in a second.
Yeah, but yeah, that's because in all things in Amtgard, I want to make memories. I want to sell memories. It's like I had my moments out on the field where I felt like a superstar. Let's get these new players out there feeling like they're the hero in their movie. And it's like, it's not that hard to do. It's just passing the torch a little bit.
It's a question I always ask because it's important for us to make sure that we are helping our parks grow, and causing people to have no fun at park is the worst way to do that. So, all right. So this next question is going to get some interesting answers, and we're going to start with Jamie on this so he can leave if he needs to. So Barbarian in a lot of the higher play is kind of accepted as one of the worst written classes. There's not a lot of sustainability built into it. It's got less abilities overall than most classes. But I've seen every single one of you make it shine on a battlefield. How do you do just that? Billy.
Yep, so making it shine on the battlefield when it's considered to be pretty bad. And frankly, I know this is kind of like a hype video for the class, right? Like this is, yeah, let's talk about how cool it is. But frankly, it probably is underpowered. Even with all the things that we've said and all the positivity we've had about it and how strong it can be, there's other classes that a lot of times I would rather play, or I find myself going, man, I wish I had been playing this for these reasons because I just didn't have access to certain things. Typically that's Assassin. I'm just going to plug that because there's an Assassin video someday that I really am excited about. Anyways, to make it shine for me, it has been the same thing that we'll say for probably every Paragon class. You got to put in time, practice, and make it meaningful. If you're going to go play in practice and you want to excel and you want to push yourself to that next stage, make sure you have meaningful practice. And that's not just like, it's like going to the gym. You can't just like scan your card and walk on the treadmill at like a 2 and like, all right, cool, and check out. It's not meaningful fitness then, right? So in this case, when you go out, think about how to be successful. Try to do cool things. And if I want to make it shine myself, I go kitted. I bring my stuff. I put on my comfortable armor, the stuff I know I can fight long games in. I bring the gear that I feel I'm proficient at, that has been tried and true, and this has come through testing for me personally and what I've found to be good for me. And it also isn't necessarily the strongest. I'll even admit that. I like two-handed, like 6-foot sword that's crushing breaking. That's not necessarily the strongest by any means, but it brings me joy, and I can find a place on the battlefield basically anywhere doing the things that I like to do. Flanking with a two-handed sword is extra funny too, because you're just giant sword Highlander kind of craziness running down poor kids, and they're like, oh no, the barbarian, especially if you just decide to scream while you're doing it. Just, battlefield yells are super fun, but that kind of adds this little sheen on your play style all of a sudden. Everyone's like, ooh, that was pretty cool, this guy just did something really neat. And that, I think, the key is to put in the time. And I know that's hard because that's such a crappy answer most of the time. Like, oh, I just got to play. I want success now. Well, the first step, start making cool equipment that you enjoy, things that can help you be successful. I used an example very, very early in this video about my friend Badger, who got himself that he started with 2 48-inch longswords. That's all the gear that he owned. He'd play a barbarian and just hack away at their legs, and he is to this day still super hard to deal with. It is very challenging. So since I'm kind of out of time there, I really appreciate that I got to be a part of this. I'm going to duck out so you guys can do the rest of yours. Thank you so much again, Merrick, for doing this. This is a wonderful idea to put all these out for people. I love what you're doing, and I hope to be involved with more of them. Thank you, my peers and awesome Paragon peeps. This has been great getting to sit and chat with you guys during the COVID stuff. It's always fun to feel like we get to be social and talk about this thing we all clearly love. So I will catch you all later. Thank you again, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the night.
Bye.
Bye, Lily. All right, so Mittens, what are ways you make it shine?
Really trying to make it your own. One thing specifically for me that also we haven't really talked too much about is that look the part. Garb yourself up. Think of whatever kind of warrior you want to be. You want to be the leather-clad warrior, go get yourself stuff. Get some fur. I've seen some guys running around with loincloths. If that's your thing, make it work. But kind of like what Broton said, you want to be the samurai, do it. You want to be the thug, do it. Like, if you look the part, if you look how you want to be perceived by others, and you'll feel that, and you're going to express yourself, you're going to have the right attitude, and it's going to really show. People are going to see you and see that barbarian character. And also, kind of like Lily said, you can't just walk on the field and kind of like play it. You have to really commit. Find a niche that a lot of other people don't do. A lot of, especially new barbarians or barbarians that haven't really gone into a lot of the skills, have one specific play style. Change it up. Find a play style that works really well with you. Find weapons that work really well with you. Something I don't see a lot of, we have thrown weapons. I almost always see flow, sword and board, sometimes a pole, sometimes a great weapon, but it's a lot of melee, not a lot of thrown weapons. And so that might be an area that you decide to really dedicate yourself to, because ranged weapons can be incredibly effective. So yeah, definitely garb it up though. Look like the person you want to be.
Put that persona out there. Avar?
Mm-hmm.
It's very similar. Prepare to be on a grind, because it is a grind. I mean, yeah, you gotta look it, you gotta feel it, you gotta be it. It's just the way it is. And I again 100% agree with Mittens. Use those throwing weapons. Javelins were actually one of my favorites because it's so gratifying to hit that spellcaster right in the finger.
It's a good tactic, and if you can pull it off repetitively, it really annoys spellcasters, especially if they're like two-sticking or they've got sword and board or whatever, and they're like, shoot. It works. It's a form of countercast. We've talked about it the Paladin episode. Dag javelins tend to fly better than our javelins, but you have to change out the front foam on them because it's the wrong kind of foam. But I know a lot of amp guarders don't think javelins work very well. I've seen some that throw 20 plus feet with good weight behind them, and they'll take somebody out.
Actually, that's one of the biggest reasons I stopped using my javelins is because some people think they hit a little hard. I actually used bamboo, noodle, padding, but then I would put like the foam covering over it, the just courtesy padding, and I'd actually wrap that with duct tape to give a little extra weight to it, and maybe a little bit more so on the tip. Get them a little front heavy.
Yep. It's aerodynamics.
You get that. Yep, and then you get your placement on the handle. Know where your balance is, so you can really just send that. So you're not going to get it all wobbly or anything like that. When you're sending from a nice balanced position, it's going to tend to stay a little bit more true. So, yeah, I mean they're effective, but like I said, I quit using them because I'd rather keep players than, get kills.
Right. Yeah. Back to that. Keep people, not ruin people's fun. Broton.
Yep. How to make it shine? Well, it's being the last one to talk is always the funnest one. Because I agree with everyone else. It's like more or less, it's like more word for word what I have on my list. But yeah, it's a simple class. I disagree that it's one of the worst class because there's other classes that are worse, and that's a popular opinion around here. Because it's like if I had to say, Barbarian is a solid D+, B- class. It's not really advanced. The curve is really high, but you plateau for a very long time before you hit that curve. And a lot of people just stop at that curve. And it's once you do that, you learn the abilities, you make the class your own. Like Advar was saying, be it, live it, you are it. That's this class. And like it's nothing flashy. It's if you want flashy class, play something else. If you want a straightforward class that the ability, it's the most noob friendly one there is because you get access to everything. You have to learn the right spells. You still have to learn magic, unlike Monk. Yeah, Monk is worse than Barbarian. But everyone tells monks that you don't have to learn magic. If someone says anything, you don't have to learn that. Many people are taught wrong, and when I play Wizard, I laugh and I laugh and I laugh as I watch them get confused. But Barbarians, you have a small set of like stuff you're immune to, and you're good to go. And you have your armor, you have your kit. Just make it your own. I'm just going to start repeating other people. So, period.
Are there? Yeah.
Oh, so I was going to say to add to that. I think one other thing too, and this can apply to literally any class. But if you have a class that you really like, then be a person that other people will like.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is, legitimately, one of the reasons I started playing Barbarian was because Broton was playing it, and he was playing it really effectively, and he is a nice person, and I was like, I want to be like him. When I started playing Bard, Broton was playing Bard, and I saw he was very effective, especially in V7, like dragging people off the field to go hug trees. What the so I wanted to do that too. He made the class seem fun. If you want people to play your class, make it look like a lot of fun, and they're going to want to play it. I'd like to think that a lot of the Paragons make their class, we make Barbarian look fun and aggressive, and because we've gotten to that point where we've mastered it, hopefully other people will want to play it too. But
yeah,
don't listen to naysayers. Naysayers are there to kill your fun. Have your fun. Do what you want.
Are there any changes you guys would like to see to Barbarian?
I would like Fight After Death removed and replaced with a different ability.
I was gonna say, Broton, you start this, so you're not the last one.
That right there is like my biggest take on the class. Get rid of Fight After Death and replace it with a better ability.
Do you have a proposal for a better ability? Oh, I'm kicking my computer.
I mean, I'm partial to like the V7 Fight After Death myself, but just call it an enchantment that we put on ourselves, and it goes with everything we already have.
Gotcha. Okay, so removing the dangerous aspect of it, of you're no longer, you don't receive wounds or things like that. You're just kind of charging around the field, because the best way to defend against someone is still to hit them. But you're
it's like they get 2 point. They get stone skin. They'll still get the breaking aspect, but they can be wounded.
Gotcha.
And it's like I'm cool. I mean, to be honest, this is just a quick thing to throw out there. I mean, I don't like the concept. Any ability that has in its notes, it is encouraged to remove this ability if people can't use it right. If they have the caveat for that ability already in the rulebook, we should not have that ability. The most dangerous stuff I've seen in this game has been from Fight After Death. It's like, because people really want to get into it, or they're angry and they have this ability and they don't care. I've seen someone walk out there with it must have been like a 6-foot polearm, grabbed it by the handle, and was swinging it around their head like a goddamn helicopter, and it like knocked over someone on the field. And the rest of us is like, is this really happening? Is this happening? Because I like to believe in my amp guarders.
Right.
I like to believe are reasonable folk. In combat, though, if you give them an opportunity to be dumb, they will be. Yeah. And this is just the big red button. A lot of people who don't understand how to control themselves. A lot.
We've kind of shifted into the opinions on Fight After Death. Does anybody else have opinions on Fight After Death?
I mean, I wouldn't get rid of it. I really like it, and I think you just have to be good at it. I guess it's hard because I feel like in some ways that's one of the big abilities that kind of is holding, like, please don't get rid of it, but like that may be one of the abilities that's holding Barbarian back from getting other things, because like you and we have all said, Barbarian is one of those classes where most people don't play it well.
Again? Discord.
So, but yeah, so you get rid of if. Dang it.
There we go.
If.
I need better internet.
No.
You broke the train, Merrick.
How dare you?
The train is tipped over now.
Blame Spectrum. Blame Spectrum.
I remembered. Okay, so yeah. Anyways, like. But if you are able to play the class really well, then you are a force to be reckoned with. I feel like we are missing out on getting more abilities or traits because people are afraid of Fight After Death. That people will use that in conjunction with these other traits or abilities to become even more powerful. These 7, you had like magic armor, if I remember correctly.
Natural armor.
It was natural armor.
Natural armor, and that went away. And if we could have some of that back, that'd be nice, because a lot of Barbarians don't run on the field with armor because you only get 3 points, and it can be hot and heavy. So if you having additional abilities would be nice, or additional armor, even if it's magical or temporary.
Mm-hmm. Andre, you got any thoughts on Fight After Death?
Fight After Death, it's a double-edged sword. It's super cool when you use it right. It's so much fun when you use it right. But even, piggybacking off what Broton said, it's not necessarily just the person using Fight After Death that can be dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who just wants to try to stop Fight After Death can be dangerous. I've had people purposely jam their poles between my legs, trying to trip me, do stuff like that, which, is it part of the game? Kinda, but when you're purposely trying to hurt somebody, that's no longer part of the game. I like it. I hate it. But, I mean, that's Barbarian.
Yeah, and I just want to say I do like it because I know I use it right, but at the same time, it's a lot of people don't use it right, and like Advar says, it's people. The best way to stop other than actual methods that are built into the game to stop the Barbarian, the fastest way to stop the Barbarian is hit them as hard as you can, because if they can't move, they can't continue.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I've thrown up once because someone hit me so hard in the stomach when I was Fight After Death. I mean, after 5 minutes of getting my breath back and cleaning up my tunic, I had some mighty strong words for that person, and it was in a different area, and nothing happened to him because I was told, "Well, that's the game."
Mm-mm.
That's
I'm
not really the game.
Well, I don't like iffy areas.
Yeah, that's a gray area. I mean, purposely hitting someone hard enough to cause them to vomit or to be lifted off the ground even is pushing the boundaries of what a legal strike is and what you need to put into a force to get that person to take it. Yeah. We'll see what happens with Fight After Death in V9 or any of the V8 changes that possibly come up. I don't know. It's a hot topic. We'll see what eventually comes of it. Do we have any audience questions that need to get asked? I will unmute everyone here in a second. But while we're doing that, Broton, you said you had some constructive, spicy takes. Would you like to state any of those?
Oh, constructive takes. I am super tired of people telling people that Monk's the better class to play when you start playing, especially cross gamers. Because, then you don't have to worry about verbals, because verbals are the worst kind of magic, which is another thing that bugs me when I hear non-casters say. But Barbarian is such a great class for newbies to learn what our game is, because you get access to so much of what classes are. You do get very few abilities, so you're not overloading the person, but you still, magic is a third of our rule book, something like that. Now, purposely training people to ignore a third of the rule book is dumb.
Yeah.
And it takes one time. It takes one wizard who just is like, you know what? I don't like monks today, and then it's just pooping over all the monks. I mean, could do the same thing for barbarians, but barbarians, you're trained right away. It's like, look out for these balls. If you hear death or if you hear command or subdual in a word, ignore it. Other than that, tread where you need to.
Mm-hmm.
I get really peeved that people down talk this class when it's such a friendly class to new people. It's the poor man's warrior. It's like, do you need a kit? It would help, but it's like, if you're a warrior, if you're a barbarian that shows up with no armor, cool, you're a barbarian. If you're a warrior who shows up with no armor, what are you doing? Why are you playing warrior?
That's true. A lot of their abilities are based around armor, so it is less beneficial for them to not wear armor. They still can, because magic armor is mendable and scavengeable and everything. You can still gain the benefit if you have a druid, but now that's relying on X class to show up.
Yeah.
And have what you need. That's another problem.
And be skilled to help you.
Yes, right. Yeah, now you're waiting for someone to be competent enough to actually make up for the fact that you didn't have physical armor. It's a good point. All right, so anybody that's in the audience, I have unmuted you from server. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them now. If not, we'll jump back into constructive spicy takes. Sounds like nothing. All right. Constructive spicy
Favorite
takes.
barbarian moment.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Favorite barbarian moments. Broton, you were talking, so you might as well start.
Damn it!
Do it.
Let's see. Probably to date, my best barbarian moment was when I got 30 to fight after deaths in a game.
What?
That's V7 stuff.
Yeah, it's some
It was
V7.
V7 stuff.
I was like, was this a Bribe the Reeve event? What was going on?
Nope, I was at Curse of the... It was when, it was before you were in the Tigers. The Tigers, handful of Einjar went out to Curse of the Great Pumpkin. And it was, we had a very constructive fighting with Rivermore. And, they were evil spirits on the field who could do whatever they want through the Reeves. And there's like, Broton, you're a barbarian. You want to fight after death? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And they're like, cool. They moved my corpse behind the enemy line. And then for the next half an hour, every time I died, one walked over. It's like, you know what? You pleased us. Fight again. And they raised me. Oh my God, I was so tired. I was so tired. And I had... I'm not even going to blame people, but I had so many bruises, but it was worth it.
That's an abuse of power, in my opinion, but okay.
It was a game design. Don't blame the person doing it. Blame the person who designed it.
All right. I'll blame whoever designed that game, unless those Reeves were doing it for like everybody. Like, hey, warrior, you want another scavenge, or you want like another ancestral armor? If they're doing all that stuff, that makes more sense. But they're just like, hey, barbarian.
I was behind a wall.
Well, and it was like I said, it was a V7 thing. You fought after death when you were berserk. Well, you are only berserk on your last 2 lives. Therefore, if you got rezzed on your last two lives, you were still berserk. You still fought after death again.
Gotcha.
So I have done it a lot.
Oh, I loved it. Anytime you got rezzed.
Wonderful. Tasty.
Dear God. I would be interested, like, if the fight after death was the 2-point armor and, like, you got your shield crushing kind of aspect, I'd be interested in it being more common, because that would be less of a problem than the charge in after anybody you want to and just swing for the fences because you're dead. It doesn't matter if you take hits. That's design-wise and psychology-wise, you're giving them a free pass to just kind of go for it, and for everyone else to also go for it on them because they don't take damage. So,
I would be cool with for the replacement for fight after death. You switch out the fighting for 7 seconds afterwards. It's like turn it into enchantment you can put on yourself that gives you the 2 points armor, and you get shield crushing for the life.
Yeah.
Or you know what? Make it a trait. A trait you can turn on X amount of times. Then it can't be dispelled off you.
Gotcha.
And don't make it the natural armor, because then you can just heal it with adrenaline.
Ooh.
I mean, people say adrenaline's some people say adrenaline's underpowered. You know what? Give them natural armor for 2 lives. That's less than ancestral armor, and warriors can heal their ancestral armor.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a makeup scavenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like you're thick-skinned, is essentially.
The only downfall is you can't technically... you can't wear magic armor with physical armor.
Barbarians used to remove their armor when they knew they were going to berserk.
Yeah, you could wear armor or you use shields.
Okay.
Well, you could wear armor, it just...
Wouldn't count.
It did nothing.
So if I don't know, that'll be a different discussion. That'd be an interesting thought experiment or proposal to push forward of making it like a natural blessing against wounds that you could heal, because that's essentially what we'd turn it into if it, because it's not armor, magic armor at that point. It's different, but that'd be interesting to look into.
I mean, if you listen to Cena's group, Hard to Kill was brought up. I would trade Fire of Death just for Hard to Kill as a trait.
So it takes extra. It either
All
takes
for
additional.
Limb for one torso.
Yep. That's not bad.
I would chicken nugget on the ground again any day.
It's a scratch.
Can we have bows again? That was another thing of V7 is Barbarians. And as other people have already stated, most people who use bows aren't that good at them anyway, so you're not really giving us that much more. Can we have bows back?
Just give us all our old stuff back.
I mean, if we're talking about ifs and buts, it's like one of the theory hot take is get rid of Archer altogether, divvy out their arrows to other classes, give bow back to Barbarian, give us a destruction arrow.
Interesting. I'm not sure if you would get a positive result of breaking the Archer class, but giving a destruction arrow to Barbarian is interesting.
Merrick, bows are the most powerful thing in the world. Haven't you heard?
That's only in certain fields that don't wear a lot of armor.
What are you talking about?
It depends on where you're at. Bows have always been moderately powerful, and especially because they're weapon breaking, bows are always going to seem very powerful, but it is down to the simple factor of more people are better at swinging stick than they are at shooting bows. So, like, although we are going to have people in the field that are like Sir Tice, who can snipe you from 40 feet out while you're sprinting at top speed and choose to shoot the sword out of your hand, most people can't do that and will not be able to hit you at 20 feet. So, nah. Any other constructive spicy takes or changes you want to see? No? No? Nothing?
Haven't thought too hard on it. I really like Barbarian. V7, I loved it. V8, I still love it, even though, again, not a lot of people do, because you make it work. You make it what it is. Mm-hmm. It's more the person than the abilities.
Than the class, yeah. That's a good way to think about it. It's it gives agency to the people to make the class their own, than letting the class form what they want to be or what they're going to be. Mm-hmm. All right, so if that's all we've got, then I'm going to close out here. Thank you all for joining us for episode 7 of the Paragon Path, the Ruffian Barbarians, and pre-recorded Merrick will close us out. This has been another episode of the Paragon Path. If you liked what you heard or saw, please drop us a like and follow on YouTube or Spotify or Google Music or anywhere else that you can find us. We have a Facebook page on the Path that lets you know when we're recording, what you can join into, and what to expect next. We record these episodes live every other weekend on the Kingdom of Polaris Discord. Link is in the comments. If you'd like to learn more, please subscribe, comment, or just drop us a line. As always, happy to see you on the field. See you next time.